that. Okay,
That's good.
I got a little more out of that. Yeah. Burrowing
For about 10
creatures.
minutes.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will call to order the February 11th meeting of the Wabasha City Council at 7 p.m. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everybody. I appreciate you rescheduling. I was a little concerned about everybody's safety last week, and it looks like it was lucky that we rescheduled to Monday and not Tuesday for this week. I don't believe we have any guest speakers. Okay, thank you for those who are in attendance. We have all council members in attendance, save Dean Mayer, who's absent. And do we have any public comment?
Sure.
Welcome.
If I might. Good evening, Mayor, Council people. I'm Rolf Thompson. And just in case you didn't all see it in the Rochester Post Bulletin over the weekend, we got some really nice press, front page, an article about our Golden Eagle survey and field trips. Brian Todd, the reporter, went on one of the field trips. And, you know, if you didn't know, what our work with Golden Eagles has really been groundbreaking over the years. Scott Mayhews has led the Golden Eagle survey for 15 years, and it has literally changed the field guide range maps for Golden Eagles. When I took ornithology, I maybe have told you this story, at the U in Minnesota in the late 70s, we learned about Golden Eagles that if you saw one in Minnesota, they were blown off course. They were accidental to Minnesota. They somehow they weren't supposed to be here. They were Western birds. Well, Scott Mayhews' work has proven that there's a wintering population of Golden Eagles in southeast Minnesota, southwest Wisconsin, and on down into Illinois and Iowa. And not only that has it changed the range maps, but it has engaged over 200 volunteers annually in the annual survey. And then people actually pay us to take them out to learn how to find golden eagles at this time of year. Great experiences, got a nice write-up. And then, not on the front page, but, and you can also see this online if you haven't seen it. Page 7, weekend article by Brian Todd is so ready to hatch at, let's see, turning 30, National Eagle Center plans next big step. Brian did a great job of encapsulating the whole case for our expansion. The need, Eagles education and exhibits, and what we're doing and how it's going to be funded. So just a really great summary of why we are expanding and why Wabasha is really an incredible destination and will become even more so with our project and realizing the results of bonding. So I just thought I'd show this, and if you haven't seen it, you can go online to the Post Bulletin website and just search for National Eagle Center, and it'll come up. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Wonderful. Any other public comment? I'll keep my mayor's message very brief so that we can get home before the snow's upon us. But we have had a couple training opportunities and advocacy opportunities. Jeff Sull and I attended the Southeastern Minnesota League of Municipalities, their annual meeting focusing on their policy agenda. Very informative to me, obviously, as a new member of council. Didn't get a chance to it was a late night, didn't get a chance to talk to Jeff afterward, but they will be putting forth a set of policy initiatives to municipalities. That'll be on our March agenda, looking at important issues such as housing, childcare. Those are the primary themes that were debated with regards to the policy that the league is putting forward. And then Tim Wallark and I were able to attend the leadership conference for newly elected officials in Plymouth last week. Is that just right? Last week. Very informative, lots of focus on communication, working together as a team, as a council, working in team, working with city staff as a team, and obviously public finance, which is an important primer for anybody newly elected. Anything you'd like to share from either of those experiences that I didn't hit on?
No, the only thing as League of Minnesota is the wealth of information that they have on their website.
Right.
And it was nice to know that stuff. So, no, it was a good conference.
And the only other thing is something before the legislature is going to be going back, helping the local government assistance back to
Thank you, yes.
2002 levels, which would be, and the same, they're pushing that pretty hard, so that would be good for
That'd be good for
everybody.
us. Yeah.
Right, and then I'm remembering now there'll be another resolution provided to us to perhaps make our own resolution on, related to the league's advocacy, legislative advocacy for a revolving loan program that's focused but not hopefully overly focused, that it's appropriate for multiple municipalities. And that particular loan program is exclusive of Rochester, looking at the region broadly, knowing that Rochester has other resources for a more urban environment. So those will come to us in our March agenda packet. Hopefully you'll get a chance to take a look at the sort of dry resolution language, but knowing that those are bills that are being advocated for by the league. So that's it from me. Committee reports. Planning, Tim, do you guys have
We did not meet in February. I believe our next meeting is March 12th.
Okay. Utilities, do you guys meet today?
No, we met last Monday.
Last week,
That's
okay.
our regular meeting day
Yep.
now. It's the first Monday of every month.
Yep.
So we changed that. That's one thing we did. The only point that's relevant really is we discussed the water increase that we're proposing. Nothing concrete yet. But the theme of the meeting was to make more information available to council and the public. It's coming forward to a meeting and making a decision. So we're going to come up with some kind of simple handout that explains some things and explains the proposed increase. And we'll have that at the next meeting and probably prior to the next meeting so people can look at it.
Great. Which I've skipped a beat, and I will pause for changes or additions to the agenda. That's one that is a change to the agenda, but we'll keep going with committee reports so I don't get disoriented. So Tony, anything from Parks?
Evening, everyone. Park Board did not meet. We got some people on vacation, and one's down in Arizona, which I wish I was down there. Streets, we talked about the brush chipper. That's forwarded to City Council for tonight. They did change their meeting time to 8:30 in the morning. A couple people on there, they have work, and it's better instead of 2 in the afternoon to come back and break their day up. They just were morning, and so we're going to try that and see if it works. And then we had a petition for road improvements up on top of the hill by Skyline Drive. So we worked through that a little bit, and I think that'll be coming to City Council next meeting. So. I wanted to kind of remind everyone about the Code Red notification system. Have you got that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Works.
I'm kind of trying to get more and more people signed up for it because we've still got, people out there that unfortunately they get a ticket. And some spots where we come down the street, we can't even fit through, so we got to stop, leave a big pile there, back out, and then come back and finish it later. So I'm trying to get the word out. Code Red notification system. You can Google it, and you can find an app. And we'll try and put it on Facebook and the city website to boost it a little bit. But it's real easy. You go on there, you create a username and a password, and you can get text, phone call, mails, whichever you choose. So I'd like to push that. Other than that, until
I
later.
believe it's on the city page now. I think that's where I signed up.
Is that?
On our website, isn't
Yeah.
it?
City
Okay.
website.
I didn't know if it was like way down from,
I don't know.
I thought it was in a news item.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Anything from Port Authority, John?
We met January 15th. That was our regular meeting night. Really only a couple things under general business. One was further discuss a joint Port Authority City Council meeting. We touched on that briefly. So I'd like to get something like a workshop prior to a city council meeting or a workshop prior to a Port Authority meeting, so we can all get together and kind of rehash some of those projects that the Port Authority's been looking at and try to start to get reprioritized on those. So we can just send out an email and see who's available I think the Port Authority's pretty flexible on when we can make that happen, but.
That's good.
So there was that. Also, in discussion was JPN Ventures. JPN Ventures is one of our clients for our revolving loan program that we have. They defaulted in December. So we immediately decided to take action on that. We have, through a series of broken promises, the principal of that organization has kind of spurred us to get local, state, and federal involved in this. Now, it's for a good sum of money. It's about $100,000. And we're concerned that if we don't act swiftly, that we won't be probably in a good place, with that. We did, as part of our loan documents on this particular one, we did do personal guarantees both for his wife and himself. His wife is a local physician in Lake City. So I think obviously more to follow on that. Our attorneys and our law enforcement are involved heavily, so at this point. We'll go from there.
Jeff or Craig, anything else? Just updates?
Yeah, this is in the good news thing. I went up with 3 other people, Laura Frederickson, Mary Fleechick, and Dave Wogan, all from the Main Street, Wabasha Main Street, and we went up and visited with Barb Haley and Senator Goggin, Mike Goggin, and just put in a pitch for Wabasha, also to continue the state historic tax credit program, so that we can get some help to fix up their older buildings, that they'll be able to fix them up and get some help from the state on that. So they were supportive of that, and we're hoping that they'll continue that program. It's set to sunset this year, I think, and it's flatlined in terms of funding, and we asked them to boost the funding. And because Wabasha, I think, has 55 buildings of historic interest in the downtown area. And so there's a number of buildings that can take advantage of this program.
Thank you. Do you have anything else? All right, so I'll pause right there. With that, any changes or additions to the agenda, which I skipped over, number 4?
We technically can't have any since it's a special.
Okay, sounds good. So it stands. So we'll leave 8-4 and just table that until the March meeting?
Yes.
Okay, sounds good.
There was a new agenda.
Oh, thank you. Yep, I'm working with my preparation. All right, so, and from our department heads, Chief Stark, anything you want to share? The council, nothing? Tony, anything from the Public Works that you want us to be aware of? Obviously, you're very busy. I see everybody out there at all hours, all day, every day.
I'd just like to thank the public for working with us as much as they can. That's about all I got. It's we're starting to run out of snow, or room for snow, so we're trying to push the banks back, and snow removal budget was looking great up until a few weeks ago. And that's about it. This next storm is going to be kind of a long one. We did issue a snow emergency, but we'll probably be in, I think, around 4 o'clock in the morning trying to get stuff ready for whoever's going to go to work. And we'll try and just kind of keep track of that during the day and probably do final cleanup Wednesday morning. Right? Today's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday morning.
All right.
They're starting to run together.
Yes, take a nap. All right. Any report from you, Chad?
First of all, we thought we tested this and everything worked for HBC, but right now it's not.
Just
So
a
that's
minor
what I've been
distraction for you
feverishly
guys.
doing here for the last 5 minutes. But anyway, it looks like it's recording, so that's a good thing. Anyway, audit field work was completed last week, 2 weeks ago. Things went. We were a little nervous about this one. There was a lot of moving parts this year, but I did have a phone call with the auditors last week. That it looks like we're still only going to have the one finding that we had from last year, which is due to our size of staff that we're never going to get rid of. He is aware that he will put the presentation into a more readable format, Craig, so we're working on that.
Thanks him.
The wellhead plan, that's starting to get some, that's for wellhead protection, since we've got the new well 3. Brian and I have been working on that, and that's getting some headway here coming up. We have had some meetings, Emily, myself, and Craig, and Brian's been a part of them for the Greater Minnesota Futures Grant. Trying to narrow in on the scope of that and stay focused on what we need to. Craig, I did send a reply to your note on the meeting with Heather.
Heather?
So if
Okay,
you just clarify what you want there,
okay.
we can go forward with that.
Thank you.
Rolf and I have also had some meetings on the amendment that's in this, and then going forward, I did supply Mary Kay Palmer with the names and emails of, did you guys get contacted by them at all yet for redesign meetings? So those will be forthcoming. But we've been kind of doing all the pre-work. There was Brian attended on behalf of the city. There was a walkthrough with the general contractors last week. 10 of them, Rolf?
There were 6.
6.
That
10 were on the list.
10 were on the original list, 6 responded and came to the information meetings last Thursday that Brian and I staffed.
Perfect. So yeah, that's kind of where we've been.
Excellent. All right.
And
We get a
tracking
Corps of
down
Engineer
past due
update?
loans. What's that?
Is there a
Corps
core?
of Engineer update?
We're still waiting for them to contact us on the middle of February meeting that it was supposed to be the end of January, and then they pushed it to the middle of February, so yeah. Otherwise, there's been no movement on that front. Actually, zero movement. I did have a call with Paul a couple weeks ago, but it was basically, we weren't gonna hit the January date, and we're gonna be middle of February. So, should know something here soon, but they're waiting for all those. I'm guessing the government shutdown didn't help them, because they were waiting for a bunch of information from DC on the Section 217 agreement. So, once I know more, we will get it out there.
All right, thank you. We have a consent agenda, which includes approving the regular minutes and joint council port authority minutes for January 8th. We have the code red letter of agreement renewal and approve notice, which again is, as Tony mentioned, the emergency services notice for citizens. We have appointments, 2 to the port authority. We had a member resign, Kirk Lineweaver, thanking him very much for his service. Con Walters will be appointed to port authority in that position. And both Craig Falcom and Jeff Sulla were reconsidered for the opening that Rollin Hall left from a council membership, and I have appointed Craig. Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate both of you as very qualified to serve in that role. We have a certification to taxes for unpaid water and sewer, but we'll leave it.
No, that's
we'll
normal.
Leave it there.
Yep.
Okay. We have a temporary on-sale liquor license application submitted by the River Junctions Arts Council. We have an American Legion auxiliary application to conduct excluded bingo. There is a Coffee Mill Golf Course liquor license application. There are the 2019-2020 fair contracts. And we have a first reading of a proposed amendment to City Code Section 500 to raise water rates, public hearing. That's the one you want off. Okay, that one will be removed. So there is no proposed amendment to City Code Section 500 that relates to Brian's report from utilities, that they want to look at that a little bit further. That'll be in a forthcoming agenda. And then we have the warrants. With that, do we have
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Councilman Friedmeier, second by Councilman Woodley. Do we have any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The consent agenda passes. We have no public hearing. Under our general business, I'm trying to get up to speed here so I can represent the staff recommendation adequately here. We have our resolution approving plans and specifications and ordering ads for bids for the 2019 street project, which council has heard about before. And we have Mr. Brian Malm, our city engineer, presenting that project. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, council members. If you recall, back at your November meeting, you held the public hearing for this project, and at that meeting, you passed a resolution ordering the improvement and authorizing the preparation of plans and specs. According to the schedule, the next step in the process for the assessment process would be to approve those plans and specs and authorize the advertisement for bids. So we have completed the plans and specs. We met with staff last week, Tony and Chad and Pat, and went through the plans and specs and got some comments from them. We have a few minor tweaks to make, but we're ready to advertise for bids and get these out on the street for bidders. We did adjust the schedule, had to do a little bit of adjustment based on the meeting that was missed last week, just to make sure we meet the advertising deadline requirements in statute. So right now we're planning to take bids on March 14th. Following taking bids, we would prepare the necessary assessment roll information based on the bids, and at your April meeting you would consider those assessments and move forward with the assessment process. This is a little different than past year's projects in that we're holding the assessment process, taking bids, but prior to construction of the project. The League of Minnesota Cities does recommend that. It's a little bit new. Most cities are doing that now, running the assessments prior to the project being constructed, and that's how we have the schedule set up. So you would hold the assessment hearing, adopt the assessments, and then award the contract and proceed with construction. The resolution you have in front of you includes the streets that were included in the assessment project. As the resolution indicates, there's also some sewer and water work along for a sewer and water extension along Hiawatha Drive that was approved by the Utility Commission, as well as some trail construction to connect trail out to Brugger Park. So the plans and specs include all of that work. The resolution in front of you would authorize advertisement for bids for that scope of work. Any questions?
Yeah, where would the trail going to Brugger Park, was that gonna go along 7th Street?
So it would go in the old railroad right-of-way that the city owns that kind of swings back in the backyard there. Basically taking off for where the bike trail ends right now, continue behind the houses there and come out basically right across the street from the Brugger Park sidewalk that's there now.
Jesse's Auto Repair.
Mm-hmm.
On the side.
Well, on the side of it, yeah, yeah. Between that and the house there.
Just a half moon.
And are the costs, projected costs about the same?
Yep, yep.
Thank you.
And if you remember the LRIP funding that we have for the 12th Street.
Right.
And
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that, Chad. That is the one caveat to the bid date is because of the LRIP funding, the plans do have to go to MnDOT for approval, and we'll be submitting those. We're hoping that review doesn't take much more than a week and a half or so, but depending on that, we may have to push the bid date. If we do, we'll adjust the schedule from there. But it's worth it for that amount of funding. You did received about $280,000 for the project through that LRIP program. So.
Any further questions for Brian?
I'll make one other comment, Craig, and Emily, and Brian, I think too, if you remember, we talked about suspending those utilities possibly with, but looking at the costs, it doesn't make sense to do that.
On 8th?
No,
Yeah.
on
On
30.
Hiawatha.
Right.
Oh, on Hiawatha.
Yeah.
For that greater Minnesota Futures. If we
Oh,
were
okay.
talking about delaying, we were talking about delaying a year possibly. And based on basically it's the remobilization numbers that make it not.
You'd save at least $5,000 by doing it right now. If you waited till the county a year, you'd basically spend another $5,000 in mobilization for that small project. So.
We are on
So we have
TV.
All right, very good. Welcome, everyone. We have a resolution before us. We could would entertain a motion approving the resolution, approving plans and specifications, and ordering advertisement for bids for the 2019 street project.
Make that motion.
I'll second it.
We have a motion from Falcom, second from Councilman Walrick. Do we have any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, very good. We look forward to more.
The last thing I would mention, I didn't mention in the schedule before, but just in case residents are interested in the next opportunity to hear about the project, those that are affected by the project, we do have a neighborhood meeting in the schedule prior to the assessment hearing. So, we'll take bids, we'll have the costs, we'll recalculate the assessments, then we'll have another neighborhood meeting where we'll talk a little more with residents about construction, the proposed schedule, and they'll see their final assessment prior to the hearing that would occur at the council meeting. So.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, Brian.
Yep.
All right. Now we have news from Tony on a brush chipper that he mentioned in his report from Public Works.
So we have rented the chipper for about 5 months. We've spent some money on it. It's worked great. And seeing how well it works and what we need to do in the short-term future, I think it's best that we look at purchasing our own brush chipper instead of throwing money away on a rental. We have taken down, I'm going to guess from the mapping, probably about 200 trees, and we had 950 total to take down. So as we get over into the east side of town and work this way towards City Hall, it's much thicker with ash trees than the west side was. So we've kind of just started, and I'm kind of looking at how much we're going to have to spend in a rental versus what we could do with the chipper after we're even done with ash trees. If we have a storm of any sort, basically we're loading trucks with brush, we're hauling it back to the brush dump. Most times that's done by hand as well. So we're wasting a lot of time in that sort of instance, and we do tree trimming on the streets. And in the past, we've dropped all the limbs, loaded them up in trucks, hauled it back to the brush dump. And now we have the capability with, we set a truck up, we built a box and put it on one of our smaller dump trucks. And we just shoot the chips in there, and we dump that probably 3 times a day. And we can keep going nonstop. So I don't know what you all feel, but I think it's in the city's best interest. If we're going to spend the money, we might as well own a piece of equipment instead of throw our money away.
I think one of the big things too, Tony, is when we rent it, it doesn't make any sense to have downtime with it. And
Right.
when you're renting it, if something else comes up, we have downtime with it. It sits,
Rented equipment sitting
Well,
used.
and that doesn't make any sense.
The last month it sat probably, it was that cold snap, probably 3 weeks it sat there. And I'm not going to have the guys go out and, work in that stuff. They'll probably throw me in the chipper, but it's just kind of, we had great weather and we got to utilize it more than I thought we would. So, that was a plus, but now I can see the downside of it is we took the chipper back. We're not renting it anymore, obviously, because I don't know how much work we're going to get done with the snow, but it's just I think it's a waste of money when we rent something and it's sitting there for, we use it for 2 days out of the week and it's sitting there the rest of the time. So they were even commenting on how little hours we put on it. So I thought we used it probably 3 days a week, on a normal basis. And we got a lot of stuff done. We moved along really great. I'm hoping that we can continue that someday. We have some work that we can do it in the spring, and then up until I believe it is May or June we have to stop because that's when the emerald ash borer hatches. And then we start back up in the fall. I believe it's October. And I know there's been some talk out there with the cold weather that it killed a lot of the emerald ash borer, but this happened back in 2014 as well. Not as cold as this, but it was 30 below. And I'm sure it did slow it down a little bit, but it's never going to come to an end. So I don't want that to sway your minds of the emerald ash borer is dead and, we're good to go. That's not the case.
Fortunately, right?
Street Commission, we talked about the different ones. There wasn't really much around here. I found one from United Rentals and the one from Sunbelt, and then there was some that were scattered around United. It was hard to find anything even remotely close. And The one in Duluth can be brought down to us, delivered in Rochester, or even at our place. So that's kind of what we're shooting for. We'd spend half of the money out of our normal operating budget, and the other half would either have to come out of the capital improvement plan or the general fund. So the only bad part with the capital improvement fund, if we throw this $12,000 or whatever, $11,000 expenditure in there, it kind of shuffles everything around a little bit. So it can be done, but it's just it affects other things down the road, unless more money is going to be put in that someday or not. But so
All
that's
right.
what I have.
So you provided us a staff recommendation based on your research and sourcing of, rented used equipment for purchase. Staff recommendations, we recommend purchasing our own brush chipper, Vermeer BC 1000 XL from Sunbelt Rentals for the cost of $22,500. The money will be split, as you just said, between capital improvement plan and the forestry line item of $25,000 in the yearly budget. We'll use the chipper after the ash borer tree removal is completed. We've needed one for many years, now feel it's the time to capitalize on this machinery. After any other time we need one, we will otherwise have to rely on renting, as you described. With that summary, we could entertain a motion to approve this purchase. You want to comment about where in the budget?
We
that
can,
relevant?
like Tony said, we could also purchase it out of the forestry line item in whole for the year and see where we come in at. And then if there's a balance that needs to be moved at the end of the year into the capital improvement plan, we can do that as well. What it comes down to is the reserves or the capital improvement plan, of which reserves can be moved into the capital improvement plan as well.
The other thing that I spend the money on out of that $25,000 was for a private contractor to take down the trees that we can't, leaning over houses, stuff that we can't reach, hanging over the bridge, the interstate bridge. He helped us down there. And we try to limit that. We try to have them drop the tree and then we clean it up. So, I mean, we don't have them doing all our work for us. We try to stretch it out, but I mean, it's a few $1,000 bills that had come in last year, so. But I mean, we can.
Stuff shifts in the capital improvement plan
Yeah.
all the time too, is if we can get another year out of a truck, we do, if we can, those types of things.
Well, I think it's a wise investment.
Yeah.
If you have to stop cutting and chopping by May, why can't you just rent a couple and buy it later in the year when you really need it again? Why do you have to buy it now?
Well, we could, but I mean, we'd be throwing money away, I think. Just my opinion, because if we're gonna spend the money one way or another. We're either gonna rent it or we're gonna buy it. And so if I was gonna spend my own money on something, I mean, I'd much more have the investment for the city than I would not having anything when we get done.
So you'll be in a similar position in April and May where you can't use it day in and day out because there's other work that the Public Works
Right.
team has to balance. So
Well, no, I mean, the emerald ash borer stuff has to come to an end.
Right.
For a summer period.
Right.
But I mean, we can
even
still.
the time of spring before that, you can't do emerald ash borer management all day, every day. So you're dealing with rental equipment that
Oh,
doesn't
right.
use every day. Yeah.
But in the summer, I could use this, we've always wanted the parks and trim, we're hitting lawnmowers and it's just a nightmare to try and have people mow and haul brush and they're using pickups and it just never pans out. I mean, we could go through a whole park and get everything trimmed up and be done in a day or two. And different things like that we've never had the opportunity to do.
Sure.
We could clear some ditches. We could blow it right back in the ditch if it's on the outskirts of town. We wouldn't have to haul the chips and, I mean, it'd be, I just don't want to throw money away.
If we rented for 5 months, we paid for half of it already.
Yeah,
We
we've
just bought it and,
spent I think I figured up 11,000 already.
yeah.
So,
Any other
Make a
thoughts?
motion to approve purchase.
We have a motion to approve Friedmeier,
I'll second it.
second by Walrick. All in favor?
Aye.
Close same sign. Thank you for this research, Tony.
thank you.
Oh, we have you again, Tony. You're the highlight of the evening. The splash pad project. Just keep you going here. We have the splash pad project approval proposal with, again, a lot of accompanying documents. You want to give us the,
Some of the printouts didn't come out as we had thought they were. They were kind of they didn't print very good. I think you got the picture of what we are trying to accomplish. I did have a typo. I had $88,981 listed as the money that we have to use, and then I also had an $82,600, but I forgot to include some money from the concession stand. So the money that we have to use is pretty much $89,000. And it's been a couple of years. I thought it was going to take longer, but people have been more generous than what I was thinking, and a lot of comments around town see the splash pad done. They want to have their kids playing at it. So between a couple sizable donations from the Doffing Fund, the VFW, we had the splash pad taco fundraiser that brought in a good chunk of money. Kelly has been very great about running the concession stand, which we never had at the pool before. You're looking at $6,000 to $8,000 a year that come in from that. So she did that specifically to get the fundraiser to help out with that. Southeast Community Foundation here in town, and then I think the regional one donated towards us, and Bob Mann helped us out with that big time. So what we're planning on is moving ahead with this to do this project. We get the engineering done. There's going to be a little bit more money that needs to be spent from the city side of things, and we have to hook up to city water. We have to drain the city of water away, which is not a big deal, but there's going to be work and some plumbing involved in that. There's going to be some electrical work. There's going to be some plumbing that needs to be licensed plumber. We're kind of downsizing. Instead of paying them $130,000 to do this, we're looking at spending $89,000, and then hopefully what we're estimating at it to be about a $10,000 investment from the city, additional to the 10 that's in the capital improvement plan. I started out working with the company in Florida, and they were a little bit higher priced, and I was kind of working with them to even see where it'd be at, because I didn't know how much a splash pad was. I didn't know what it took to make one, build one. And I worked with them, and then I transitioned over to the company in, I think they have offices in Minnesota. They're based out of Wisconsin. And they have done tons of these. We met with the guy that represented the company, Chad and I met, Dylan and I met, went over different options. We can treat the water, or we can not treat the water. So if we're going to treat the water like the pool, we're going to keep it rotating. It's going to cost a lot more money because we have to bury a tank in the ground, we have to do the chlorine, all that crap. So if we go with this other system, we use city water coming in, it's activated, it gets used, it's on a timer, it shuts off, the water drains out to the curb, it's done. We don't have to worry about testing the water, monitoring it, spending money on chlorine. I'd meet with the utility, the plant supervisor, Pat, talked about the quantities, how much water it would use, and we figured out that if we can time it how we feel, there's different options on here with the control box. We can turn certain things on, turn them off. We don't have to have the whole thing running all day long. So that's kind of what our goal is going to be. I don't know if there's anything else that I can help.
So I have
Questions
a question. I think this is a good project. Everybody, it looks like a lot of fun, but I'm wondering, I know we got a lot of money from, most of it was donated, but can we still get by sole sourcing this thing? And we don't have to put it out for bid?
Oh, I did work with that other contractor, and I do have that.
I can answer that easier, Tony. This group is part of a national contracting organization. It's like the state bid.
Yeah.
So if we join that group, at zero cost. It doesn't cost us anything to join that group. We actually get a 5% discount on the purchase, and their cost has already been fleshed out through that process. And the League of Minnesota Cities does have some guidance on national procurement groups. So we do fit underneath that for this project as we go forward. I've got that information at my desk.
Did you run it by the city attorney, or?
Yes.
In our purchasing policy too, it says that we want two, we should have two, but when you start, there's so much involved in this project that once we start narrowing down with one person, that's one of the things that stipulate we can do that in there. We can strictly, if we get a couple bids, we can start working with one contractor and start working on specifically more of what we want instead of, I mean, we can hire an engineer and spend another.
Yeah, the bid out of Florida was 120 something.
Yeah, the other one, yep.
Yep. So you got two bids there. We got that national procurement agency. We're comfortable. And then with the guidance, I think we're comfortable that we've crossed all the Ts and dotted the Is on that.
This would take 2 weeks. And so I think if everything went through, this would be up and running for the summer. So pretty excited.
There'll be some screaming outside.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So will the choice to chlorinate or not chlorinate affect the estimate significantly? Or is it really just more of a maintenance issue?
We already, well, it would increase the cost.
Right.
Because we have to buy a 3,000 gallon tank, circulating pumps, treatment fixtures, chlorine pump, different stuff. And when we knocked that down, I believe it's a $15,000 difference.
Any guidance on that, chlorinate, for moving water? Does the state provide any best practices?
No, you can do either one.
Okay.
Yep. So the water is already chlorinated from the city.
Right.
And, I mean, the only thing that we would be saving is city water. But the amount that this came up to using was, if you compared it to other usages around town, I mean, there's no comparison to it. So, like I'm talking like the ski hill or, bigger businesses in town, and it wasn't going to affect the city services at all. We made sure of that.
And it drains into the storm drain, you say?
Yeah, we'd have a discharge, a small tank, and the splash pad would drain in there, and then we'd have to have that also because of rainwater. So if we get a downpour rain, that's not going. We didn't want to put it in a sewer system because then now we're going to treat it. Yeah. So we have other discharges that are in back of the pool. There's one on this side, and then there's two in the back, and it's normal. Pump will kick on and shut off, and it'll discharge whatever it needs to do.
So if we treated it, would we have to send it into the treatment plant because it's chlorinated?
If we treated it?
If it was pool water, which is more heavily chlorinated.
No. We discharge when we empty the pool. We discharge it out in the street.
Oh, you do?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Certainly don't want to put it back in the. Yeah, takes weeks. We do it slow. We don't open up the big valve and dump the whole works. But
we have the cleanest fish in the river.
Yeah.
So you're about 89% of the way to your estimated budget, best as you can estimate. About $18,000 of which is pool concessions, and the rest of it's donation and foundation support.
24,000 would be pool concessions.
Oh, okay, it's higher than,
CIP.
okay,
Yep.
great,
Yeah,
all
'cause of
right.
the-
Which is great, that's great. Any other questions for Tony? We have a staff recommendation to move ahead with the purchase of the equipment and labor to install the proposed splash pad in the spring of 2019, before the pool opens for the summer season. Approximately 2 to 3 weeks would be required for installation. City crew would assist at times during the installation, providing fill and material and grading to keep costs as low as possible. Once approval is completed, the city would receive engineering schematics for plumbing and electrical work, as Tony described. Staff will also be responsible for submitting plans to the Minnesota Department of Health for the state permit, and they've been in contact with MDH already.
Just to clarify on the additional to get it up to the 100, that's the cost of the time and perhaps some other expenses that we'll have. So we could, we got 10,000 in the CIP, we could just fund it, or we, look at paying for it up front and having the concessions, make up that difference if it's a year, year and a
Oh,
half
right.
worth, or 2 years worth of concessions. That's to bridge that gap until the end. So, and I'd like to personally thank Kelly and her team for everything she's done on this. This has been Kelly Quaid, our pool director. She was key in organizing the taco feeds, which raised a lot of money. And then to Tony, Dylan, and Pat, thinking outside the box with the infrastructure to run this thing that makes it more efficient and affordable for all of us. So thanks.
Yeah, the kids of
everybody.
Wabasha, thank you for that planning, and they are well aware of this project.
We're
I hear it
funding it
from-
at 100,000, is that the budget then?
Yeah, that's
estimated.
about what we're estimating at this point. If there's any big snafus in that, we bring it back here. So it's kind of funny talking about this before a 12-inch snowfall.
I'll make a motion to approve, to move forward.
A motion by
Second.
Councilman Woodley, second by Councilman Falcom. Do we have any further discussion? To move ahead. Move ahead with the project, so you can get your bids and start to,
Well, no, this is for approval of the project
right,
with this bid.
yep,
And then, see, I can't get engineering, I can't get any of that other stuff until we commit to it.
got it.
So I mean,
Yep.
yeah.
We need this approval to move forward.
Yeah,
Yep.
but it's
And
with the entire project, not
Right.
just,
Right, and as Chad stated, anything significantly outside the budget would return to council.
yes.
So we have a motion, we have a second, we have no further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
That's exciting, thank you.
Good job, Tony.
I think you're finally free, Tony. Oh, no, of course not. This is like musical chairs. So we still have Tony on the agenda for another wonderful, another wonderful bit of update. We have the bike share program coming in a minute, but we'll give him a break so he can take a quick nap. Item 10.4, we have the development agreement amendment for the Riverfront Resurgence and related to pre-design costs, which was workshopped and discussed, and resolution was adopted on our January meeting.
Yes, we
Chad?
talked about that at the last meeting. This is the amendment that spells out what was discussed. Rolf and I have both reviewed this and worked with Attorney Flaherty to draft this, but it puts forward the $150,000 to be put into the pre-design fund that we will establish here within the accounting structure of the city. So, and then there's an accompanying resolution that moves us forward with that. And this is the second amendment to the development agreement, if you remember. We did one several months ago.
I'd make the motion to approve the amendment.
In the resolution?
Yeah.
We have,
everything.
we have a motion to approve the resolution, to approve the amendment by Councilman Woodley. We have a second by Councilman Sulla. Do we have any further discussion? It was pretty thoroughly discussed in our last meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Now we need Tony again. So we have
think
the
you're
City
gonna
of Wabasha Bike Share Program and coordinate the State Health Improvement Program.
I think you're gonna like the cost of this versus the other two. Yeah, I know. Enough for the one night, huh? Okay. 6 months ago, I was asked by a couple people to attend a meeting, and I think Rollin was there as well. Dean, I know Craig's been there a couple times. And it's a group of people that want to help partnership with other agencies and get things to do in Wabasha that are healthy, biking, walking, and other things as well. We had some bikes before that were through the SHIP program, and I don't think that worked out very well because they're nice bikes, but nobody could get to them. They were in the storage in Public Works, or they were down in the Glander building, transfer building. Nobody was going to check them out. I certainly wasn't, not going to check bikes out on the weekend. So this program is a little bit different. It would involve buying 6 bikes through a grant program, and that's SHIP, Statewide Health Improvement Program. And they would be housed downtown under Heritage, in Heritage Park, under the bridge, but it's more or less on the parking lot side. Part of our section in this project is it's a 10% match, but any of our labor supplies, anything counts. So we always have that 10% match, but by the time I get done with my meeting time, counting my staff time, anybody else's, it doesn't take long. So I figured I'll provide for the concrete cost of $300 and some labor to do this. But we pour a pad of concrete down under the bridge, and there would be a bike rack purchased through this program, and the bikes are locked, an app. And so to use the bikes, you have to download the app on your smartphone. You have to enter a credit card, and you have to check the, what am I looking for? The rules and regulations
Yeah,
and
waiver,
the liability waiver, yes. And you can use the bike free of charge. The goal of SHIP wants to remain it free. We're going to have a spot on there where donations can be accepted. We're thinking for the maintenance of the bikes, that's going to be the only thing that would cost us money down the road. We believe it's a good thing for people to be able to come to town, whether you're in the marina or you're visiting overnight or you have grandkids here for the weekend, you're in the campground. That's kind of the goal of what we want to do is give people in town another thing to try to keep them healthy. We're still working on the fine rules regarding, what was that, the liability waiver, and I think we got the hours tweaked. We might have a little sign wordage to change around, but what you see in the pictures is pretty close to what it's going to be if it's approved. The money would come from SHIP funding. This is the first project in Minnesota that's doing this. Trying to think if there's anything else. The maintenance of the bikes would be taken care of by River Rider Cycle and Specialty. He is also okayed to check out helmets, have them on hand, help people with the bikes. He's really good at encouraging people to bike, which is great. And his number would be listed. Public Works number would be listed if there's a missing bike or a flat tire or something. We'd get it worked out one way or another.
Tires, they're solid. Those are solid
Or they
tires.
are.
Yeah.
Oh, good. I learned something new today.
With bikes, you gotta keep coming up. These tires, you
I
don't.
can't remember we talked about that. That's right. Any questions? It's kind of a new program.
Yeah, this is kind of what some of the other cities are doing, is they're not charging for the rental of the bikes, and we aren't either for the first 10 hours. If you keep it longer than that, then it's $5 an hour, but you can ride a bike around for free for 10 hours.
Okay.
Very good.
I'll make a motion to approve the program and purchase of equipment.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Councilman Woodley. We have a second by Councilman Walrick. Do we have any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you, Tony,
Thank
again,
you.
for your partnership with this entity. I always, I know their acronym, but it's the Statewide Health Improvement Partnerships, and that is absolutely their method of conducting work in the communities to partner. So thank you for being their willing partner. Thanks to others who've been involved through the Bike Advocates Group and as members of council. This is, I'm pleased for us to be the first community. I hope we get a little recognition for that. I think it's a wonderful thing to be first for. All right. Now you're done, Tony. I would ask that Tim would help us with a resolution accepting donations. Tim, would you read some of the donations
Sure.
for us?
So the first probably 12 are to the library fund, $50 from Agatha Hubbard, $50 in memory of Gene Strope by Matthew, Leanne, Natalie, and Morgan Marks, $100 in memory of Gene Strope by John Oshner, $20 in memory of Gene Strope by Linda Taney, $20 in memory of Gene Strope by Dave Kennebeck, $22 in memory of Gene Strope by Gary and Deb Glomsky, $11 in memory of Gene Strope by Rich and Tammy Woodley, $25 in memory of Gene Strope by Dan and Dee Burtis. 25 in memory of Gene Strope by Sydney. You'll have to help me with that one. Shirley. All right. 25 in memory of Nancy B. Peterson by John Suhampi. 25 in memory of Nancy Peterson by Diane and Fred Schulberg. And then $50 in memory of Nancy Peterson by library staff. $5 in memory of Nancy Peterson by Resident Council of St. Elizabeth Healthcare Center. $411 from RJAC for public movie performance site license. And then a $50 donation to Wabasha Fire Department from Craig and Nancy Folcom.
That was for memory of Gene Strode. but-
All right, well, great remembrances of
Thank you.
important community members. Thank you, Tim, for reading those. I have a motion to accept the donations.
I'll move.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilman Walrick, second from Councilman Friedmeier. Do we have any discussion? Usually not, although thank you. It's always in order. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. And then we have some information on financials that were emailed to council. Do we still have those here? Maybe a holdover. I printed my agenda way ahead, so I think that's maybe good.
We have to
Covered.
put that on the agenda to show the public that the council is.
Seeing all the financials.
Auditors look for that.
Right,
note.
yep, okay, yep, we received them. So now, we have an announcement, the City of Wabasha Board of Appeal and Equalization is scheduled for Wednesday, April 17th, 2019, from 6 to 6:30 at the Wabasha County Courthouse, which is 625 Jefferson Avenue.
And just
That's
to
Sue.
let the board know, Holcomb, Schmidt, and Sola did the 2018 Board of Appeal. The current trained council is John Friedmeier, Craig Folcom, Jeff Sola, and their terms, or they are trained through July 1st, 2020. New training will start July 1st of 2019 for Tim and Brian, if you so choose. They have switched to online training now, which apparently I think is much easier. I printed out a couple of handbooks if you want to start looking them over before the online training. So, but you only need one trained person to do your Board of Appeal. I mean, so we're covered. But
Overtrained.
it's just nice to understand, if you're going to sit on there. So you guys can let me know, who wants to, do it. Tim, you can do it. Brian, and I guess we'd have to have a trained one, so either be John, Jeff, or Craig.
No,
Has
yeah,
to be
any
one from each
combination.
ward.
Right,
You have to be represented by each
of the boards.
council person from a ward
Oh.
charter, so.
Did you do it last year?
I did it last year.
I think we already decided